Okay, hey. I wanted to make a tier list of NA more to kind of just break down teams into where their expectations should lie, but also kind of just to talk about teams' offseason moves and what we should be expecting and kind of build hype for that because I think there's been a lot of changes in the season and I kind of wanted to go over, what you should be excited about in a roster. So for me, I'm not going to order like don't get too stuck on the particular ordering of when I talk about teams. Roughly they're in the same tier. And I will say that, if you took last year's power rankings into consideration, like you would have been wrong about Valiant, about Mayhem, about how good Shanghai was, right? Like, I think I just want to place people into tiers more generally speaking. And like, even this will likely be wrong, right? Like, I'm no prophet seer. I haven't seen any Overwatch League scrims. I don't really know. If someone told me Hog was going to be meta in playoffs, like, I'd tell them they're crazy, if it were 2 years ago. So right now, all I'd want to do is kind of discuss the roster and kind of where I think they roughly lie in terms of power or what tier they are in NA. So I think we got to start from the bottom up, right? And this will be, the bottom tier of NA. I don't want to like say this so negatively, right? Like I could have done A, B, C or whatever, but let's just call it top, middle, and bottom tier, just for ease of purpose. And I think the bottom tier, there will be some teams that will be more inspiring, some teams that might not be as inspiring, but I think in any given meta, teams can strive. So they could easily bump up to, middle in any given meta or even top, potentially. So the team I first want to talk about is the Vancouver Titans. This is kind of the pride of NA in a way. There's the pride of EU teams with London and Paris. This is kind of the pride of NA with second winds, proteges coming through, both in coaching staff, management, and also players, right? So I think we have to ask ourselves what happened before and, did they upgrade, right? That's like the most important question. I think Overwatch League has gotten better and better every single year. Every single year it's gotten so much better. So did you upgrade compared to your last team's roster, and where did you roughly lie last year? This can give us an indication of where you roughly will be this year. Again, really rough estimates. So they kept Shredlock, Dalton, and Rolf. These guys have been on the team since last year, and last year they had a falling out with the Korean players, and we already know that story. But this is kind of their second rebuild. Shockwave left, or their contract expired. Boom, Lynx are in for that slot. KSA was in before, FRD is in, and then Karkar was in, and now Fire is in. We also have Teru, who I'm excited about, but he kind of runs in for Suna, or kind of that non-direct thing, but you can just add him to the DPS category. So let's talk about these in terms of upgrades. Like I think the best is like comparison, right? Shockwave compared to Lynx. I think Shockwave's more on the rise, and he's a more promising talent in terms of his trajectory. You look at him, and his trajectory was really good coming out of contenders. Really, really good, really, really fast. Was kind of the star player of Titans. So Lynxer, I think, is a really good hit scan, but has been kind of like mellowing out, kind of plateauing a bit. But that's not necessarily bad, but kind of you look at that as a side grade or, pessimistically a downgrade as well. FRD compared to KSA, right? I think KSA is really good, and we got to see KSA in a lot of his good metas, particularly when he was playing SIG, which is what he's known for. FRD, I think if you guys read his tweet longer about him being benched on Atlanta Reign, it was really insightful to how he was feeling, and it's a great tweet longer. You should go read it. But FRD kind of was like looking really promising on Atlanta Reign in Season 2 with the peak of GOATs, right? And I think he brought that level of aggression. He brought that playmaking. He entered a lot, but like that was kind of a part of his style, and allowed his team to push in, I think. And FRD looked good, and then as soon as Hawk became eligible, got benched. And FRD kind of talks about this, that Hawk was always better, and like he lost motivation. So I'm really excited for FRD, in the fact that I think this can be his redemption year in a way, or just like his comeback year, because we saw him on Atlanta doing very well and then got replaced by a better person, in the eyes of the coaches of Atlanta. So this is his year to come back, and I haven't seen a Sigma to compare directly with KSA's, but likely KSA's that's his signature hero. he was playing on 250 ping though, so I'm really optimistic that FRD is going to be able to, shine on this team. But FRD's more specialties, go more in line with like say Diva, Hog, or Zarya, whereas KSA didn't really have that great of a Diva. So I think you look at this, and this is like a side grade, maybe in different off tanks, and the fact that he's not going to be on ping should be helpful. I rate KSA highly, but FRD is also very good. So this is probably also like a side grade or a slight upgrade, whatever you want to call it. I think the next one is Karkar and Fire. I think Fire is underrated. Not by a whole lot. I guess like I don't think he's like this star-studded player, but like I think he could have a lot of potential. For those who don't know Fire, he was on MB before. I can click on these links actually. He was on MB before, and MB was always kind of a really strong team in NA. You can tell that they only had certain years where they slumped, but on the whole, they were kind of the top 4 in NA historically speaking. So, and same with Envision. They were kind of the guys who turned into MB later. So these guys, I mean, like Fire was always a big part of those teams in terms of strategy and shot calling. So I'm optimistic about Fire. He's a really smart guy, and I think he's better than Karkar. So I think you kind of Teru obviously is the last one. He was a projectile player for O2 Blast. Honestly, I don't know as much as I would like to know about Teru. He was playing behind Pelican, so he never actually got to play because Pelican is really, really good. But he's a young talent. From all indications, he's a really hungry talent as well. But he doesn't have a lot of experience under his belt. It looks like he's done pretty well, that being said. Just looking at his Liquipedia, but, this is also, I'm pretty sure he was not playing for a lot of these. So kind of unknown talent, but I think, adds a much needed diversity to this squad from the flex or projectile role, whatever you want to call it, because Dalton and Linkser are much more on the hit scan side for Linkser and much more on the flanker side for Dalton with Tracer and Sombra specifically. So Teru rounds out their lineup really well. I think if you compare this to last year, I kind of talked about the comparison between Linkser, FRD, and Fire from their former counterparts. And, all of these can be argued, and I don't really want to get into a deep argument about how much of an upgrade, to what extent. Like, they're close. And let's just call them, optimistically a slight upgrade to their former counterparts. I think if you're a Vancouver fan, you kind of had your rebuild last year. Granted, it was like a forced weird rebuild where you just went full Western, went full budget like this season, right? I was hoping for this offseason to be a bigger step for them, so it wasn't another rebuilding year, but it's kind of looking like they are rebuilding still, and they're going to keep iterating. So it's not like a drastic change has been made in the rosters, right? But I think this will be an improvement. I really like these guys. These guys are kind of the pride of NA, right? Like that I talked about. I come from NA. I'm a big fan of a lot of these guys. I've talked to a lot of these guys. They're really good guys, and I think their team synergy will be good. But just from a power level of the team coming in with expectations, right? Like I think the story of this team has to be redemption, and they have to have really great teamwork. And Second Wind has a really great history. The management does of being able to kind of make that cohesion really quick and be able to also find the great talent in NA. So I'm optimistic about this team, but maybe not super optimistic that they're going to do so much better than last year, like be standout or anything. And I'm happy to be proven wrong, because I think in certain metas this team can and will excel. And I think we'll have to see exactly how much that will be, but cautiously optimistic for Vancouver that they made upgrades to their lineup. I think the teams we can talk about now are kind of the EU Pride teams. I'm excited for these teams. If you come from EU, you should be excited about these teams. You guys have been clamoring for a full EU team for a long time. And let's talk about Paris Eternal first. So we can't easily talk about these guys and compare them to their counterparts from before. I think we have to kind of almost compare this to the London Spitfire lineup or the Vancouver Titans lineup. It's much more easy analogy because none of these players are the same from last year, let me tell you. So you've got a lot of the EU talent, and let's just talk about the EU scene for a little bit. I'm not going to lie and say that I'm an expert on EU contenders or anything like that, but British Hurricane was the dominating force in EU contenders, and these guys are the best of the rest. Essentially, they're the EU super team like that can be analogous to British Hurricane in terms of skill level. So maybe actually it could be more apt to talk about British Hurricane instead and talk about what we expect of them. But I think, just going over this team relatively quickly, like Ellie Vogt was heralded as, one of the best Western off-tanks coming from that region in Season 3, coming to Justice. With visa problems, a lot of other issues, he didn't get a play right. Neptuno is a person who's been on Philadelphia Fusion. He's been really successful on that team. Charge, even though they similarly had visa issues, he looked good when he did play as well. And then the rest are relatively new talents. Oni and Suna have played in Overwatch League on the Dallas Fuel and Vancouver Titans. Suna was benched essentially for Shockwave. And Oni stepped in for Decay a few times as well and played alongside Decay as well. So they have a lot of people who kind of have been in OWL. Neptuno is the most veteran in that core as well. So you see this team, they actually have a good mix of people with experience, like high fidelity players. They're not just kind of random pickups. And these are like the best of all the other EU teams besides British Hurricane. So I think if you're a Paris fan, last year was, I think, a really exciting year for you guys. Going from the EU kind of French team of Paris Eternal from the first iteration in Season 2 to going to Element Mystic / Eternal with 9K. I mean, that was like 9K and Rush. That was a great experience. You guys are kind of going back to that Season 2 vibe. So you should level your expectations similar to that. EU as a region, I'm not smack talking EU as a region and saying NA is better. Both are trash. Both are absolute trash in comparison to Korea. So like when we've seen these NA and EU teams historically speaking, they haven't done super well, right? Like you can just reference back to any of those given times, and I'm not saying that they won't be good, right? I think that they'll kind of be in line with the expectations of the past full Western teams. And I think there are really exciting parts of this roster. Like I'm really excited about Khan, formerly I Will Be the Best, IBTB. Thank God he changed his name. I believe it's his middle name. Yeah. He told me. I've talked to him. He's a really hungry guy, really great guy. I mean, this roster is going to have to do something similar to Vancouver, where maybe I don't think their individual skill is like, tip top of OWL or anything, but I think if they can get that synergy together, which you kind of hope with a full language, full similar culture team, that you're going to be able to get is that synergy, that cohesion, that teamwork that you really need. I know back in Season 1 of Gladiators, that's what we had to rely on. I didn't think looking back, I think everyone would agree that our first iteration of Gladiators wasn't a very skilled roster, but we relied on teamwork. We surprised teams. We had unique strategies. We, found hidden talent where it was, and I think that's the win con for a lot of these Western teams. This team, I'm really optimistic about Onigod as well. He looked good when he was on Dallas. Not Decay level good, obviously, and that's the direct comparison Dallas fans make, but Onigod is a really good player. He was on Doge for a long time. He's been a really great player for a really long time. He's well experienced and honestly is probably one of the best EU hit scans in the league. So you've got to be really excited for that as well. So this roster has exciting parts in it and names that you guys can attach to from before, as well as new talent coming up with, Don, Naga, and Khan, where there's, maybe recurring faces with Neptuno, Ellie, and Onigod. So I think this team has like a good mix of both, and I'm optimistic about I really don't know too much about Get Amazed. I also don't know much about J-Mac's coaching, but I know J-Mac as a player. I've talked to him. He's a really hardworking guy, so I'm optimistic about this team. But again, I don't think you guys are setting your sights as high as they were last season. You guys kind of want to be that dark horse team, and definitely you guys are going to need, this team is going to have to work on a lot of teamwork stuff and have innovative strategies and innovative ways to win, I think. I think we're going to talk about the EU super team, the original super team. Why am I looking up British Hurricane? The London Spitfire. Um, I think it got announced today. Or sorry, there's a rumor today that Shax is possibly going to this team. I'll talk about it since that's clearly they have some sort of hit scan hole here. Because Sparker is underage until last time I checked. Yeah, okay, so very 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 late. Sparker's this young blood talent, really exciting, but he won't be able to compete similar to Sparkle until like summertime. So this is the core of British Hurricane. Jofi's not here, but Calix is here. He replaced Jofi on British Hurricane a long time ago, and also they don't have Danid. So you look at this team, and this team dominated EU contenders, like, and led this region. They've told me about it. I I really like this team, and I think it's going to be hard to rate them exactly where they're going to be, because I could see them doing extraordinarily well because of their pre-existing synergy, and they're proven, right? But they do come from a weaker region. EU is a weaker region, but they competed with AT, who I think is a strong team, in the Atlantic Showdown in Gauntlet this year, or after Gauntlet in that show match, and I think that was a good indicator that they're kind of going to bring their own style. They've always kind of had their own style and made other EU teams kind of convert to their style because they were the best team in that region. So I'm really excited about this team strategically because I think they're going to bring different looks into OWL that are going to be confusing. Like, I could see this working out really well or really badly on any given day, kind of like a Chengdu Hunters thing, but I'm sure to a way lesser extent. But this team has dominated EU contenders for, I don't even know how long at this point. Let's look it up. A very long time, though. First. Yeah, just like for the past year, more or less. This roster has been dominating for the past year, like, and it's not even close. It's not even like the finals are like 4-3 or something like that. They're crushes, absolute crushes. So this team is going to be really exciting, and again, Spitfire. I think this is a really good opportunity for C9. I think because they've always had a Korean. They're an American company with a Korean team representing an EU country. That's always kind of how it's been for the past 3 years. Well, now they're just more, clearly a Western team representing the EU continent. So this team is going to be, really exciting because you always have to ask, how does this compare and what does that speak about my region, right? Like, how good does that make EU contenders? I don't think EU contenders on the whole is very good, just like I don't think NA contenders on the whole is very good. But the tip-top teams with British Hurricane, with American Tornado, these guys are really good. So I'm really optimistic. I don't know how it will transfer over, but I think this team could be, a potential dark horse, could even rise to the middle. Like, maybe I had less faith in Vancouver, but London Spitfire, I have a little more faith that maybe they can jump a little bit more in any given meta, right? But let's talk about the players on this team because I think it's really interesting for the people who have watched OWL before and kind of watching the guys coming back. Blase, this guy got picked over Danid, which you might think is curious because British Hurricane had all this success, right? All the success of just dominating throughout a year, and that was with Danid. On DPS. I think Blase is actually an upgrade to Danid. He's kind of the better version of Danid in the fact that Blase is also really great at Doomfist. I know Danid is really great at Doomfist, but Blase is a little bit more flexible. And then I think Blase is similar to Danid in the fact that, I don't think we've seen Blase flex, be a true flex player. And I think he does have the flexibility in the fact that he looks decent on every hero, but I think he's going to be exceptional on certain heroes like Doomfist, like Junkrat. These are the heroes that he's going to do on Hog too. These are the heroes he's going to do really well at and like potentially carry his team all the way forward. And I think as long as he's not in a position where he's going off of his strengths, and hopefully this is covered by Sparker, right? Who will hopefully Sparker and rumored to be Shax. Like, these guys will have a deeper DPS line that they'll be able to cover each other's weaknesses. I think Blase is a good pickup because he'll be able to kind of have that specialization and kind of have that one trick feeling to a hero where like it's like, wow, we have we have Doom Diff or whatever it may be, right? So I think this was a really good pickup, and Blase's been around the league for a little bit, and I think this is a good time for him to kind of redeem himself as well in a redemption arc type of thing. Riku Toivonen, my guy from Finland, Ripa. This guy, I mean, I always thought he was gonna outpace Shaz. Just he wasn't there at the time. And boom, now we're 2 years later, and I'm certain he's gonna outpace Shaz, and like he has kind of fulfilled my expectation. I know he's a hard worker. He's really hungry, I can tell you. Ripa's a really good guy and works really hard and trusts a lot in his team. So I think, I'm really excited to see Riku personally because, he's my guy. But yeah, I think that's going to be, the flex supports in this league have only gotten better and better and better, and it's scary good. Ripa is a grinder, I know, and he's a really good fragging kind of guy. So hopefully he'll be able to match up to that. Kelix too. He was on Toronto Defiant and then went to go to Boston Uprising. So he's kind of been on the lower half of teams already, and he hasn't been particularly standout, but he does have that veteran experience, especially if they're looking for more of that shot calling presence or kind of just more of a stable person. So he was on Toronto Defiant in Season 2. They didn't do too hot. He didn't look bad in any instance. He didn't look, stand out on any instance as well. Oh, I realized maybe I was cutting off some stuff as well on my webcam. But, Kelix brings that kind of veteran presence to the team, and I think he knows what it's going to be like to look like an Owl as well. And I think he's, like, honestly one of the less exciting people mechanically to talk about. Hadi and Molfonji and Hybrid, I mean, I'm going to be honest, I don't know a lot about them, but I know Hadi does a lot of the shot calling for them. He's a big guy for their team. His Rhine is going to be really good. I think if you're going to see a meta where London does well, it's going to be in a Rhine meta. We saw these guys even as of recently in the Gauntlet, try to play Rhine on Gibraltar, which I personally disagree with, but to each their own. London will run Rhine on Gibraltar, let me tell you. These guys are not afraid to kind of bring their own style, like I was saying, and I think these guys are going to have to bring their own style. Molf, actually, like, the thing I noticed about Molf was not any of his off tanks. Not that they look bad, but that he was a really good ball player. So I'm hoping they use some sort of strategy where he's on ball at some capacity. I'm not really sure, just kind of randomly bringing that up. So, I mean, I think this roster, has a lot of promise, and you're hoping that their dominance from EU, their confidence, the synergy that they built in the past year where, like I said, they've just been going 1-1-1-1-1, just absolute domination here for the past year. You're hoping that kind of transfers over, and we also get to see how EU is as a region, because I think EU, like, individual players are really good from EU, but we haven't seen a great EU team, and this is a team that I think, has the potential to jump to middle, like I said, in any given meta. So, I know, again, we said a lot of these teams, we're calling it the bottom tier, but I really think, the gap in any given meta, the gap, like, my expectations, are going to be different from anyone else's, but more likely, everyone has their win cons in, and I'm really excited for this team to see if they can jump in the middle. I think this year, again, is going to be as competitive as ever. So this team is going to be really exciting as well, especially if you're an EU fan, which I know EU fans are very, very rabid. So the last team, and last but not least, and I think also in no particular order, it was just easy to talk about the EU teams together, Boston Uprising. These guys are the canonical bottom tier team, but I think that this year I'm really optimistic. I've talked to Laurie. I'm a big Laurie fan. Laurie is the head coach of Boston Uprising, and he's bringing his WGS boys with him, as according to rumor. I think, and this is all publicly available, information just based on Twitter and Reddit, whatever it may be. But there's rumors that Faith is coming here, Valentine's coming here. Makes sense. They don't even have a second support, so they got to get someone from somewhere. And Laurie's already brought in I'm 37, recruited San Juan. This team, I think, if they get if they're full Korean and they essentially import WGS, I think this team can be very good. I think it's going to be hard to manage. I know Laurie's English isn't that great, but I know he's a really hard worker. He's already working on his English. Like from the last time I talked to him to the first time I talked to him, he's already improved his English so much. So I'm optimistic that these guys can and will be, a successful mixed team. Laurie and I think, have similar views on coaching. We're much more strong-handed, and I think with being, a more strong-handed coach, it really, you do wonders on a lower level team because those are the teams that need it more. Honestly, like you have more creative players, you need to let them be who they are. Maybe on a lower level team, you need to let them be who they are, but you need to kind of like jam things in, like get your principles in, and these guys will listen. They won't have the ego of some star-studded rosters. So I'm really excited for this team. I think let's talk about their acquisitions that they've made and like the ones that seem really exciting for sure. I think we can start with these two right here. Stand one, he was on Shanghai Dragons. Honestly, you look at him in the playoffs, he looked good on ball. He outperformed Fearless for the job, right? He's a good ball player. He's a mechanically very good tank. He never really got a ton of playtime because Fearless kind of was always playing. At the beginning, Shanghai was doing 50-50, and then Fearless just stood up to be the starter. But Stand One has got to be one of the bigger gets Boston has had in a while, and I think it's going to be a really good opportunity. I know Stan One really wants playtime, and that's a big thing for him. So Stan One's going to get his opportunity here. I think, Fusions is going to be more of that Rhine player. I can't see a hero where Fusions is much better than Stand One. I think Stand One's Orisa is pretty good. I think his Monkey is definitely very good, and his ball looks good as well. So Fusions might be on the back burner a little bit because I know Fusions has been more the mainstay of this roster for a long time, especially in GOATS. That's where he was absolutely terrifying, this kid. But Stand One is looking to be the starting main tank, and I think gives you a lot more flexibility and a lot more wide range of heroes because I know Stand One is very flexible. So I'm really excited about that. You also get to see, for those interested, like, was it Shanghai's success or was Stand One really a Shanghai level player, like this really good player? I know that main tanks aren't going to look good if they're not on good teams, or they're going to look really good if they're on good teams, even if they're underperforming. So Stan One, this is his time to shine. I think this is kind of a make it or break it moment for him. He's going to get a full starting job. This is really exciting for him. That's my guy to watch out for on Boston. But another, I think another great pickup that they've made is Soon here. With the breakup of Paris Eternal as we knew it from Season 3. Soon's a piece that this team was missing was a tracer player. Color Hex was never really a hard tracer player, nor was Jerry, right? And I think that, we've seen how important Tracer is in these metas. When Soon gets to play Tracer, that's going to be great. If it's Hitscan too, he's shown proficiency on that. So I think he's going to be a really good complement to this roster in the sense that he fills like a very clear hole that they have. And I think Soon, while people may say, oh, he's kind of an older DPS, they kind of assume he's falling off. He looked good last year. His Tracer looks as good as ever, as annoying as ever, as smart as ever. He's a really smart Tracer. He has the experience of Season 1 and on. This guy's been a Tracer player for a long time. He's always been able to stand up to the top tier Tracers and knows what to do in those scenarios. So I'm excited for when this is a Tracer meta. I feel like they have better pieces for this, for Stand One upgrading the Winston play and Soon upgrading the Tracer play. I think these are two really great pickups for a really common recurring meta in Overwatch. I think we look at the rest of this roster. I'm kind of disappointed these guys didn't keep Aztec, but they have Aztec Myeonbong. Myeonbong is that guy who was the standout player of last year. You got to keep him again. He looked most standout on Ana in particular. I don't think his BAP looked good. His Zen looked like good-ish, but I think his Ana looks stand out. So, in any meta, I could see this, if they get a Rhine Ana meta, boom, Fusion's Myeonbong. I know they leaned on that last year. This is something they can do again. And, boom, Ana Winston, that's a great comp already. They have that with Stand One. So, in any meta, I could see this team pop off, especially with Laurie. I think, he's proven. I want to go over Laurie's track record, actually. To show why I'm such a big Laurie fan. Great pick, by the way. He has a perm. this guy kind of was just he's a really new guy into the scene. He was on some NA teams. I think he was on Noble to Bermuda Noble. I forgot exactly. It looks like Bermuda. I'm pretty sure he was on Noble for a short bit. He's worked with these teams, and uh, he has been a guy who's kind of like made WGS. WGS wasn't a good team before Laurie came in. These guys were kind of a bottom feeder in the league. Kind of, yeah. Like you look at this 8th, 10th, 9th, 10th. This was the season that I believe they had Karayan, DPI, like those guys who turned into Florida Mayhem's pickups for season 2 for the Goats roster. That was their best roster, and then after that, it's not been doing great. But Laurie kind of picked this team off the ground, and boom, you see this success that they have, right? And that's why I'm really optimistic about him. He that shows to me that he has good scouting. He develops well. I don't think this team should have beaten Runaway, like just speaking frankly. Runaway had so much talent. They had Mag, they had QOQ, or wait, did they have QOQ at the time? But yeah, they had Revenge, they had Assassin, they had Huyol. This was a really good team that they beat. This shows to me that he beat them with what I think is less talent. So he's also trying to bring a lot of that talent over, according to rumors, right? Like if Faith and Valentine is there, the Valentine pickup makes sense to me. Speaking of which, because they are really mixing that DPS that isn't a hit scan player. Color Hex is like a flex player, but he's closer to that hit scan side. Less so, just a hard projectile player, like a hard Pharah player or Junkrat player or Genji player or whatever it may be. So that pickup also makes sense. Just outside looking in, and Faith makes sense outside looking in because they don't even have a main support on the roster. So I don't know if those are true. This is just kind of me speculating / going off rumors that are publicly available. I don't know for sure, but if you think WGS would perform well in Owl, if you get most of the pieces of WGS, if you believe in Laurie and believe that this mixed team can work, I think that's going to be the hardest part, is can they all gel together? Can they all trust each other? And I think Laurie, that'll be his test this season, as well as, all the players on Boston who I know have had disappointment in the past with their results. So I'm optimistic about this team, but, you could easily see it going the other way as well with internal problems and losing. But, I want to be really optimistic for all these teams, because I think all these teams have their clear win con, and I see the potential of these teams. As a coach, I always see the potential of how good teams can be, rather than if they're going to be bad, like I don't really care. That's their own wrongdoing, but like I expect these teams to be as good as their potential can be, and I see a lot of these teams, like Boston specifically, I see they could be really good and easily jump to that middle tier. Not even with any particular meta, just if they get the right pickups, if they get kind of the right team synergy, team environment going, I think they can do very well. Okay, so that was a long video kind of talking about all the teams that I thought were bottoms here. I'm going to try to break it down 4-4-4, just so that it's easier to talk about in tiers. But again, these tiers, anyone can jump at any time, and these are just estimations. I'm probably going to look like an ass at the end of the season, and, it turns out Vancouver and British Hurricane are just running the tables on everyone, Maybe I could be totally wrong, and that's fine. But I did want to give you guys a preview of what these teams looked like last year, and where their exciting parts, and where they're going to have success, I think, from outside looking in, obviously, where they're going to have success this season. So let me know if you guys like this format, by the way. I'm going to try to keep it in this way and go over the middle tier next, and then the top tier of NA. And if I have time, I'll try to do APAC as well, because I wanted to split it by region. Okay, cool. Thank you guys, and have a good day.